Hey everyone, welcome to Build Series in New York City. I'm Laura Muraski from HuffPost. Our next guest rose to fame as a teenager with the hit songs Foolish Beat, Out of the Blue, and Lost in Your Eyes. Debbie Gibson went on to star on Broadway and released many more albums through the years. Now the former teen pop idol is starring in a new Hallmark movie called Wedding of Dreams. Take a look.
My next gig.
Oh, hey, you're not. Are you that famous singer?
Well, famous is a relative term, but you know.
I heard you moved to town. My wife absolutely loves your music.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
Would it be too much to ask for a selfie?
Not at all.
Just. My wife, she used to follow you from mall to mall when she was a kid. She did this little dance. It was like.
That's cute. That is really cute. You got the moves down, but that would be Tiffany.
Huh?
Right era, wrong girl.
What?
Amazing vocal chops, right? And
yeah.
we're friends, actually, but I'm Debbie Taylor.
Oh.
I'm Debbie Taylor.
and you're doing this now.
Yeah, well, actually, my students are raising money for the school music program, and my niece is really the brains behind the operation. But I'll be there doing my part, washing cars. Yeah. Oh, wait. See you there?
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Have a great one.
You too.
Bye.
Come on, buddy.
Bye, puppy.
Everyone, please welcome the one and only Debbie Gibson. Hey.
Hey, hey.
You see some familiar faces in the audience.
I do. Many familiar faces, yes.
So just like the clip, you see familiar faces. People recognize you, I'm sure, on the street and everything.
Yes, and there are people that say, oh my God, I loved your song. I think we're alone now. And I have that exact conversation.
And
so.
and the thing is that there's reports that you and Tiffany never got along, but you guys are actually friends
Oh my
in real
gosh.
life.
As I put it, who had time to not get along? Like, we were both doing our own things. We were focused, you know, we were on the road. And if we did cross paths, which was usually like at a, you know, like Top of the Pops or somewhere in Europe or whatever, we always kind of like bonded over the fact that we were two of, you know, really a handful of girls. There was Shanice, or a few of us that were super young doing it at the time, but we'd kind of look at each other and go, how are you holding up? You good? I'm good. So I think we had a bond. We didn't have time to be best friends, you know, there was just no time, but we always had a connection, and we certainly weren't rivals. I was always super supportive of her career.
And now you perform together sometimes.
We do. We've done some dates together, and we're performing in Singapore and Manila coming up in September.
Nice.
And then with Lisa, another fabulous vocalist, in Dallas for a show we call Ladies of the 80s.
I love it. What a great lineup. If we could just get to Dallas, we'll be there.
Book your ticket. Come on, it's not that far. You only live once.
All right. Oh my gosh. Well, let's talk about this exciting Hallmark movie, because it's a sequel to the first one. And the first one was kind of a great surprise hit because it did really well.
I was shocked. It was like the #1 thing on all of television that night. And, you know, I'm kind of weirdly used to being an underdog. Like, you know, for years and years, I'd go to meetings in LA, and my dad, who's very not connected to showbiz at all, would say, you're always going on these meetings. Whatever comes of these meetings? And I'm like, I know, but you kind of have to go. So I got so used to people saying no, that when Hallmark actually said yes, it was such an amazing surprise. And then when it was such a big hit and it resonated with, I mean, I think a lot of children of the 80s watch Hallmark, but even beyond that, you know, I'm now running into like older women that have no idea of my musical past. And they say, I saw you play in that show, Summer of Dreams. And it's so much fun to have like that new audience as well. And so, yeah, I went in and presented an idea for the sequel, and they said yes again. So they said yes, and then I got to say yes to the dress. There you
I
go.
love it. Yes. So there's actually a nice dress. I don't want to give out too much away in Wedding of Dreams, but the title says it all. But
I know, I was like, you sure you want to put wedding in the title? But, you know, I think what we all look to Hallmark for is a happy ending.
yeah.
You know, and we know we're going to feel great.
So for people who haven't seen the first one, just catch us up who Debbie Taylor is, because it is sort of a version of yourself in some ways.
It is in a lot of ways. I mean, I was constantly saying to the director would say, now Debbie in this scene would do such and such. And I'm like, no, just say you. It's me. It's really me. Like, it got very confusing because I think you're supposed to bond with any character you play anyway. But in this instance, I mean, if I wasn't playing the role, I would have been the consultant on how to play the role.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So Debbie Taylor, had this big pop career, in her teens, and then record label drops her. She's living a high life in this fancy hotel suite, can't afford it anymore. The rock star rock star actor boyfriend ditches her. And she ends up making her way to Youngstown, Ohio to find her somewhat estranged sister, Denise. And in real life, my sister's name is Denise.
Right. Right.
And she is like the saner, more grounded one of the family too, much like in the movie. And Denise says, first I show up and I'm like, vacay, just visiting. And they're like, yeah, something's up. And eventually I say, look, like everything in my life's falling apart and I need help. And Denise says, you can stay, but our music program needs a teacher. So I end up kind of like, out with the bleach blonde extensions and the overdone wardrobe and on with the cardigan sweaters. And I end up teaching in this high school and falling in love with it, falling in love with Noah, the guidance counselor, played by the fabulous Robert Gant. And then, showbiz comes a-calling again. But I decide to kind of, do things on my own terms now. I say, why can't I live a normal life and then tour on my terms and make music with these kids and do my music when I want? And that's where it really echoes my real life, because I think like when you first start in this business, the train starts moving and you're like, oh my God, I better say yes to everything or they're going to kick me off the train.
Sure.
And then as you get older, you go, wait, it's my train. I'm the conductor. I get to set the pace. And maybe it's not the fastest pace anymore. And maybe I have a more balanced life. And that's really what the sequel is about. It's about that juggling act that I think is maybe everybody, but, I can speak to women on a woman's journey of how do I give 150% to my man and my career and my family and be the best aunt and the best girlfriend, and in this case, the fiance, and plan a wedding while showbiz comes a-calling again.
Sure. Yeah, and she's faces a pretty tough decision at, a couple points in the film.
Yeah.
Do you feel like personally that's something that you faced, and if there's a tough decision that really stands out to you where you had to make a difficult choice?
Oh my goodness. I think in the last decade or so, I really started thinking about like birthdays and New Year's Eve. And, New Year's Eve is a huge performance night.
Sure.
And then it was like, oh, wait, I have a partner I want to spend New Year's Eve with now. So maybe I should do that. I haven't done that yet. And so I did make those decisions and put those things first a lot more. And almost maybe to an extreme degree. And now the pendulum's kind of swinging back to where it's like there is a bit more career infusion all of a sudden, because you need that. Like you also want to be the person your partner met.
Sure.
Which is, like I've always been fired up by my creative endeavors. So you don't want to totally give that up and become somebody else, but you do want to find the balance.
Right, right. And in this film, she, Debbie Taylor, mentors young students and everything, but you yourself do that too. And that's really cool.
I do. And in fact, I was on the phone this morning. There's a blonde kid that you see in some of the clips for the movie named Sean, who is also in the first one, who is such a good producer in his own right. He's got perfect pitch. And so I sent him a fully fleshed out version of a song that we only use a snippet of in the movie. And we've been like virtually producing the song. He's really doing all the work. I mean, he's cutting vocals with the other kids and running things by me. And pretty much I'm going, that sounds great. Run with it. Like I love validating his instincts because they are good.
Sure.
So I do love, kind of passing the torch and empowering kids who are talented. And maybe, like every artist is so insecure. So I think the best thing you could do is, again, validate, support, say, hey, keep going with that idea. And so a lot of the dialogue in the movie about how to write a song or where ideas come from, the idea of getting out of your own way so that a hit can get channeled in instead of thinking. It's not a mental act writing a song. It's an emotional, spiritual act. And so it's like a receiving. And so I talk about that in the movie. And in that way, it's a very unique movie for Hallmark because I got to bring a lot of real life things and feelings about music to it all as well.
And also be the executive producer behind it as well. So behind the scenes, you sort of have another take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I was involved in everything from casting to post-production. And, You know, the first one, I was an exec producer as well. It was a little more in title only. And then I think that everybody saw, oh, she knows how to put stuff together. Like I've spent my whole life and my career putting things together, which is really what exec producing is. It's like, how do we take this vision and make it cohesive and bring it to life? And my manager, Heather Moore, is an exec producer on it as well. And again, she and I together are always naturally doing that. We're naturally looking at details. I don't just show up and say my lines. I've never been that girl.
Yeah.
Even on Broadway, it's like, you know, and I think a lot of, you know, every artist, every actor on Broadway, or, you know, wants to contribute and bring their whole self. And so it's exciting that, you know, they kind of let me take the reins in that department even more on this one, which was really fun.
Well, you know, as many of you know, Debbie Gibson is no stranger to producing, at least music, because you're still like the youngest female artist to have produced, written, and performed a hit single, and that was Foolish Beat in, what was it, 1987?
Yes,
it's unbelievable. And that's still, you still hold that title.
I know. I'm ready. All you young girls out there who are, you know, on GarageBand doing your thing, like, come on, beat my record, girls. Beat it. I'm gonna, like I jokingly just said in another interview, I'm gonna show up somewhere with a torch and hand it to you. But yeah, you know, and when I first started, being a female writer, producer was something that wasn't happening, and then being a teenager on top of it. So I felt like I had to arm myself with that much more knowledge. I almost had to show off. I had to go, oh, that's a B flat minor 7th chord there, not a 6 or whatever, because the boys club needed to know that I knew what I was talking about. But really, I've always said this to people, all producing is, in music, in my opinion, is knowing how to find the right adjectives to express what you want to hear. Mm-hmm. You know, and it could be a reference. It could be like when I work with kids, I go, okay, like get into the groove of the song. What does that guitar feel like? What color is it? What is it? What emotion does it elicit? And maybe what other record do you love that has the sound that you'd like to hear? Yes. And then, you know, they don't have to know how that sound is being made. They just have to know how to convey to the guitarist what it should sound like. The guitarist will find it and kind of audition sounds for you and say, oh, that's it.
Right.
And so there's not a big mystery to it, in my opinion. It's really like, it's just expression.
I mean, just describing that to me just sounds, I'm like, that sounds easy, right? I mean, it's just kind of going to what you know and sort of creating that sound outwardly. So it sounds,
exactly. Like I think a lot of writers, when they write, they might not even realize, but they're they have a sound for the record in their head. And it's how to get it from your head to the speakers coming out. And that's what I always loved about recording, you know, or making videos. It's like, I made a pencil sketch of a castle and then I walked into a soundstage and there it was, you know? And it's like, that's just magical to me. It never has lost its luster, that whole concept.
But at the same time, I feel like you were intentional too, because I think I read somewhere that you intended to make a hit with your first single, with Shake Your Love, essentially, right?
With Only My Dreams.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, with Only My Dreams. Like, you're like, I know that I want to have a radio hit.
I knew that sonically. It's funny, because Only in My Dreams was in Summer of Dreams as a ballad. So like that song could have been, you know, in any incarnation, like it could have been any genre, but I did choose to sonically try to make it sound like something that could be on the radio. I just thought, what a cool way to reach people.
Yeah.
You know, like in my mind, you weren't allowed to change the radio station. It's like, oh my God, people are gonna be trapped in their car and my song's gonna come on and they're gonna have to listen to it. Like, that's the coolest thing in the world. So, yeah, I still think it's cool.
It is, right? It doesn't
cool.
get old, right? It really doesn't.
No, like I was watching the VMAs going like, what's cooler than being a rock star, you know? And I don't feel like that kind of rock star. Like I watch that and I go, that is a whole art form. Like wearing that couture outfit and having that kind of like groundedness in the midst of that circus atmosphere. Like I've never been really comfortable in that. It's a lot of energy, like a lot of stimulation. So when I watch people that breeze into that situation, and like Shawn Mendes opening the show, and I'm like, his voice sounds like, I can only dream of sounding that calm in a concert. I mean, and at that age, it's just incredible to me. Like he's singing a song he wrote about anxiety. And he is so in his element and in that bubble, and that voice was coming from such a clear place. And I was like, that kid's a rock star. That's a rock star.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
Well, don't sell yourself short, because at the same time, you had your own fashion. And remember the black hat.
Yes.
And that the cover of the album with the denim ripped jeans
Yes.
and the drawing on it. So I mean, would you say that you were trying to make you made some fashion statements looking back, even if they were not intentional?
Right. That's the point. They were so not intentional. It was like, oh my God, I think I'll throw this hat on for this video. I mean, it was so off the cuff. I did have stylists occasionally, but like even recently I did a promo shoot for like, some upcoming stuff that I'm doing. And I'm like, you can have a stylist, but like I'm going to end up wearing half my own clothes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's just my expression. And so, and there's something great about like a professional stylist going, okay, I'm going to make you look perfect and well tweaked, but I love when they infuse what you have. And that's what I always did. I felt like my style was so easy for kids to emulate. Mm-hmm. And, eventually I went into like the couture realm, and I think I kind of lost people a little bit there, because it was like, what's Debbie Gibson doing trying to wear couture, and so, I think so long as they could go buy it at their mall, it worked.
Yeah. Well, you grew up in Long Island. I'm a fellow Long Islander.
Yeah.
And now you're living in Vegas, right?
I am.
Whoa. So what brought you to Vegas? How are you enjoying it there?
Oh my goodness. Really, love brought me to Vegas.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I'm not enjoying there is the weather right now, which is why I'm so glad I'm here.
Yes.
And whenever I hear you guys say, oh, it's so hot today, I'm like, it is not desert hot. So it is not. This is like, so I've been able to walk my dog all over town. You can't walk your dog right now in Vegas, but.
By the way, she has her dog here.
I
with
do.
us.
Joey's backstage.
Yes.
He's becoming famous. My mom calls this morning and she goes, you need to get him an animal agent.
Or at least an Instagram page.
I was like, Mom, you want to get back in the management business? No, right. At least, yeah, he'd have a lot of followers.
Yeah.
But no, Vegas is a great place to live because it's got that kind of quality of any beautiful mountainous place. I live, half hour from the Strip. Mm-hmm. But then you can have all that entertainment. You can have all that fine dining and all that hoopla if you want it, but you can go in and out of it. And I'm kind of like in a quaint suburban area, and it's just actually a really calm place to kind of hibernate and settle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would you ever consider doing a Vegas residency? There's so many people who are doing
Oh,
it these
let
days.
me think about that. Let me think about it, consider. No, I would definitely love to. There was a moment in time when Donnie and Marie went into the Flamingo showroom that I was being heavily courted to do that, and it didn't come to fruition. And Donnie and Marie, to me, belonged in that showroom over me at that moment, and they've been there like 8 years or 9 years. Oh. And I'm happy to call them friends, and they're incredible. Like, if you get to Vegas, in my opinion, them and my friend Matt Goss, like, best shows on the Strip. And I'm not saying that because they're just my friends. And I haven't seen Lionel yet, and I'd love to. I haven't seen Gwen yet or the Backstreet Boys. I'm sure they're fabulous. But, one of my favorite residencies in Vegas was Garth Brooks at the Wynn.
Oh, wow.
Because it was just him and a guitar.
Yeah, really stripped down.
Really stripped down, storyteller. Mm-hmm. It was like watching someone on a high wire. You're just, and it's funny because I've always had kind of more of an edgy singer-songwriter voice, unless I'm in like a Broadway zone and,
Yeah.
It's kind of imperfect. And Garth has that. He's got that little edge and storyteller quality to his voice. And so it was nice to see something without all the bells and whistles and with that vulnerability and that storytelling.
Well, maybe something we can look forward to down the line.
Yeah.
Never know.
Never know. Never say never.
Yeah, you never know. With Wedding of Dreams, though, and the other, the prequel, you wrote some new music for it, too. So you're still writing.
Oh, yeah, I write constantly.
Yeah.
And it's just so great to have the Hallmark outlet for this music. It just feeds all of my creativity. It's like, I get to produce, I get to act, I get to write, I get to produce the music and, hang out with kids. And like, it just feeds everything I love.
And we really enjoyed seeing you last year on Dancing with the Stars. Oh,
Thank
my gosh.
you. Thank you
I feel
so
like that would be
much.
one of the hardest things to do. I mean, was it
So,
difficult?
I get emotional thinking about it because it was a hard moment in my life. So, at any other moment, I don't think it would have been that hard in the sense that it was so familiar to me to show up to a dance rehearsal. I mean, I've done that my whole life. But I was showing up to a dance rehearsal with my body breaking down every day. And in fact, I did not play out half of what was going on physically on the camera because after I told my initial story and I shed my tears, I decided that it wasn't good for me and my health to continue calling myself a sick person.
Huh. Yeah.
And I just decided to mentally get over it. But I mean, I was having issues like, you have different organ meridians going down your legs and in your feet and all this. And so I would go to sleep and wake up and like my ankle wasn't working, my foot wasn't working, and it wasn't from dancing.
Yeah.
It was from like we're staying in an Airbnb house and there's some mold toxicity issue we didn't know about or whatever, and my body would react. My body was reacting to if they glued rhinestones onto the outfits. I'm very chemically sensitive now. So the carpet cleaner in the trailer, the rhinestones, everyone's wearing cologne and perfume. God love them. They smelled fabulous. But my body was like, it couldn't take it. And so I think at a certain point, the universe said, I'm going to spare you and send you home, because it just felt like I did what I went to do, which was to mentally tell my body to get over it. And it didn't really happen fully in the course of that time, but it started happening after. So I didn't get to show off on the show, if you will. I never got to do that number that was dazzling and fast and showy. And, I would have liked, or very modern and artistic. But doing the tango to Havana on my last show was so fun. And I felt so good about it. And that was the day the rhinestone glue issue was happening, which is why I was wearing a different outfit in the beginning of the show. And you never saw me up on the balcony waving and cheering, because I was laying on a cot in the parking lot next to my trailer meditating. Wow. To be able to do that 2 minutes. Wow. And so those were the unique challenges I was dealing with that I had never in a million years imagined I would have had to deal with in my life. But whoever gets sick and thinks, nobody's, pardon the pun, nobody's immune.
Yeah, seriously, yeah.
And I really, it was a moment where I said, it wasn't about Lyme disease. It wasn't about anything but what broke down in my life or in my being to allow something to take my body over and debilitate me to this degree. Mm-hmm. And so it's been a really big period of examination and rethinking my life and repacing my life. And in that way, it was a gift. Yeah. The universe will find a way to pull your plug if you need a check, if you need to check in, and if you need to slow down.
Well, we're glad that you're feeling good these days.
I'm feeling
so
good.
Amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
So that's great. Backstage, you ran into Lisa Lampanelli. You two were on the Celebrity Apprentice.
I know,
I
love Lisa.
What was the experience like to be on that show? I'm sure you stayed in touch with some of the folks on the
I did.
show.
Lisa and I text occasionally. Dee Snider's a buddy. I run into Penn in Las Vegas. I'm somebody who doesn't like to be sitting home, much like the Dancing with the Stars thing. I don't like to be sitting home saying, oh, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. I should have done it. I wonder what that... I like to experience things. And I turned down The Apprentice 3 times. Wow. And I kept going back and examining the contract and changing wording. And it was like a big thing because, those reality shows can really play with your mind and edit you a certain way. And even at the end of the day... You're always, look, I remember there was a task where I was running around. I was on street corners. I was sweating. I was paying off vans. Whatever. And the entire episode was about how lazy I was. And they're showing me on my, 5-minute downtime. And I'm they're creating storylines. They know how to do it. They create a hit show. But you're essentially definitely not in the driver's seat. It was interesting. It was like a test of my stamina. Mm-hmm. I knew that if I had the opportunity to raise money for Children International, I wanted to. I didn't have that cash in my pocket at that moment to say, here, build a center in India. So I had that platform, and I got to do that. And they built a center in India with the money I won. Amazing. And the minute that happened, I think my whole being went, okay, I'm done. Because I didn't have... I didn't have it in me to win it. I didn't want to win it. I was I think to win this, you have to be shrewd, and I'm not shrewd.
Yeah, but you still were able to contribute to a cause that you cared about, which is the takeaway.
And so again, I take away that I experienced it.
Yep.
I can't say I'd do anything like that again. When I saw my friend Marissa Winokur on Big Brother, I was more power to you, girl, but I don't think I could do that again. Uh-huh. But I think if you do something once and, if you can say you've experienced it and move on.
before we get to audience questions, aside from Wedding of Dreams, what else is next for you? Because I hear you have a couple of things in the works.
Oh my goodness. Well, I am going off to Asia to do some dates with Tiffany, and I'm so excited. And the show with Lisa. And I am working on new music, and I'm composer on 2 musicals that have been floating around for a while in my little world, and my beloved Deb heads have been hearing about them for years. But musicals can take like a decade or more to get off the ground. So Skirts, which was a movie I was supposed to do years ago, Hillary Carlip, Katie Ford, and I turned it into a musical. So you're kind of always looking for a unique way of how to launch it. Mm-hmm. And then The Flunky I wrote with Jimmy Van Patten. We co-wrote the lyrics. I wrote the music. He wrote the book. And he's the son of the late, great, beloved Dick Van Patten. And this is like a dark comedy. And one of my favorite comments, my longtime acting teacher, Howard Fine, said, "It feels traditional yet fresh at the same time, fresh and new," which was a lovely compliment. And so I think Broadway's starving for some original material, always. Yeah. We always want original stories, although, there are great revivals as well. But I would love to bring something new to Broadway as a composer and musical supervise.
Yeah. Totally.
Be in the pit with the band every night, darn it.
That would be awesome.
Not have to worry about the vocal cords 8 times a week. My Broadway friends amaze me with that. Like,
and that would keep you back, bring you back to New York so we could see more of Debbie Gibson.
Would be fun.
So we would
that
like
would be
that.
Fun.
All right, let's get to some audience questions. I know there's some Deb heads in the crowd here. All right, who's first?
Hi, Debbie.
Hey.
I think it's really cool that your 2 movies, like the Debbie character is very similar on your real life person.
Thank you.
And so I was wondering how much of it is you steering the character towards your real life persona versus the writer saying, oh, let's make it more like the real life person.
Oh, that's interesting. I think it's pretty much me steering. Like, what I tried to bring to it was, okay, in real life, what would happen? What would that moment be? Let's say that showbiz comes a-calling. Well, in my world, I've had like the 30th anniversary of a bunch of milestones. And God love Hallmark, they let me play 10 years younger. So as Debbie Taylor, I have the bangs. It's the bangs allowing me to play 10 years younger. So I have the 20th anniversary. So that's why the radio DJ wants an interview. And then it turns out he's a judge on Platinum Star, the reality show. And then it snowballs. So I tried to kind of inform the writer as to what might happen in a real career in that way. But then there are moments where they're like, the execs at Hallmark and the writer might be like, well, we want this to happen. And so then it steers off in another direction. And then suddenly I am more of the actress kind of taking on these set of circumstances that never really did happen to me in my real life. So it's a blend.
Thank you.
Great question.
Thanks for that question. Who's next?
Hello.
Hello.
I just wanted to know, so you've been in the spotlight for so long, and I was wondering what you would tell yourself when you first started out, had you known what you know now.
Oh my God, it's funny. I think what I'm telling myself right now, which is breathe. Breathe. I get very hyper and adrenaline driven, and really but that I really would tell myself to try to take things in more, maybe do less and take things in more. Because I used to want to be the girl who was like, I'm always working. I'm working on this. What's new? What's next? And that catches up to you eventually, and then suddenly you're trying to process your life. It's like eating a big meal, and you're like, ooh, I should eat the way the French eat. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Have a conversation for an hour, a little more. So that's kind of, I would have told little Debbie, do like the French do. But no, really. Yeah, that would have been it. Yeah, the fact that it's like it's a no, it's not a marathon. It's a long. Oh, it is a marathon. Sorry, it's not a sprint. Mm-hmm. It's a marathon. So you want to pace yourself. And I think now, it's interesting. Like, if I go somewhere to do a gay pride performance or something, I go, let's get me there 2 days early so I could take in the city. So I'm not just appearing on a stage and not quite knowing what's going on in the town or not having interacted with the people. And so I do more of that now.
Great. Thank you for that. All right, we have time for one last question right here.
How you doing?
Good, thank you.
I'm JC. I'm actually in the industry for a while myself. You actually followed me on Twitter for a while.
All right.
But anyway, enough of the free promo. My question is, what motivates you, and this is one I always ask myself as well, what motivates you in 2018 to keep doing? Because I know, like, when you're in the industry for a while, it gets to be like, a guy that, works at McDonald's for 30 years, and it's like, oh, do I got to go in and, like, cook
Right.
Big Macs? What motivates you to keep doing today what you did in the 80s?
That's a great question. I mean, there's several things. First of all, I always feel like I'm at the beginning of something. Like even like vocally right now, because I'm different, my body's different, I am a different age, I'm figuring out how to deliver my old hits in a new way. There's always something new to learn, to figure out. And then the fact that people still want to see what I'm doing and hear what I'm doing motivates me. It's like, oh, wow, I also signed on for something. I wouldn't feel right about saying like, okay, see ya. The fact that, people are still getting something out of what I do is very motivating. And when I was going through the health thing, it was very motivating, and it allowed me to not curl up in a ball for too long, to know that, you know what, the booking agents are calling and the audience is waiting. So that was really like, just motivating all around. Yeah, I mean, and I just think, I listen to a lot of current music, like more than people might expect. And I like surprises. I always joke that I was the youngest person to do a bunch of stuff, and maybe now I'll be the oldest person to do a bunch of stuff. Like, I haven't won that Grammy. I haven't scored that film yet. There's a lot of things on my to-do list. And some of those things got kind of pushed back a little bit, and I'm ready to embark on that new chapter again. It's just the creativity that really keeps me going.
I love that we ended on that question. And thank you for all the great questions. And Debbie, thank you so much for coming by Build today.
Thank
you.
you.
The new movie debuts on Hallmark September 8th. Check it out and give it up one more time. Debbie Gibson, everyone.
Thank you.